Hey, chiropractors, welcome to Modern Chiropractic Mastery with your host, Dr. Kevin Christie, where we discuss the latest in marketing, business, and professional growth with some of the leading experts in the industry. Welcome to another episode of Modern Chiropractic Mastery. This is your host, Dr. Kevin Christie, and today we're going to dive into Playbooks. And we're going to do that with Craig Huston, who has worked, as you'll hear, with many different types of businesses and leadership. And we're going to dive into the idea of playbooks for your practice based off the book Pinnacle, and how this can be really helpful for your practice, not only in onboarding new employees or following certain procedures appropriately, even to the point of having increased profits and selling your practice at a better rate at some point down the future, and why playbooks are instrumental into your practice. And honestly, they don't have to be so daunting. And it's something that we've helped out our practice and our clients a lot, is trying to get together some playbooks to where, whether it's a patient experience playbook or a marketing playbook or a front desk, there's a handful that you're going to want to have. And we also in this episode dive into how you can make it a little more digestible and how you can store this and document it, and certain softwares you can use. So start taking your business serious. Doesn't have to happen overnight for you. It's a little daunting to say, I'm not have time to do, 14 different playbooks, but you do if you plan it over 3 years or a year or 5 years, whatever it is, and you keep on making forward progress in this. In no time, you will have a practice that is documented well, and ultimately, like what strategic coach would say, is a self-managing business. So without further ado, here is my interview with Craig Huston. All right. Welcome to the show, Craig Huston. I'm really excited to have you on. We had a great coffee some months ago, diving into all things business, which was interesting. But before we dive into our topic du jour today, tell us a little bit about yourself personally and professionally.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. That was a great coffee, by the way. I thank you for the time. I enjoyed
Absolutely.
that. Yeah, so I come to the table as a Pinnacle business guide. I think that was what originally connected us.
Yep.
And before that, I spent quite a bit of time. I'm not going to say how old I was, but it was quite a bit of time in the corporate world, in aviation mostly, but always in leadership. So running and leading companies, divisions of companies, and then left that space and started my own consulting company back in 1998. So a little clue to my age. From there, went into the nonprofit space, did that for quite a while, still in leadership, and then left nonprofit world to go back into aviation to help a friend of mine run his business while he was building a hospital in Africa. So
Wow.
did that. And once that wrapped up in 2016, trying to decide what I wanted to be when I grew up, I started Summit Achievers. And the whole purpose of Summit Achievers is to help business owners maximize the value of their greatest wealth generating asset, which is their business. And especially that lower middle market companies, that I have a real passion for companies that are struggling in that $1 million to $3 million range, sometimes even below $1 million, that have a tough time getting through that ceiling and figuring out how to do the next big thing for themselves.
Yeah, and I think that's a big topic, and it's something that I try to convey to chiropractors. And unfortunately, and too many of them, we have a saying that, they die on the table there, giving their last adjustment. And there really was no exit strategy or plan in place if that were to happen. And I was actually just a little bit of a sidebar topic, which we do often in this podcast, but I was just in my strategic coach meeting last week, and someone in our group had unfortunately passed away at a very young age, 50. But we talked about how he built a self-managing company, and his family is fine in regards to the financials. Obviously, they got a lot of grieving to handle,
Sure.
but the money side is not an issue. And because he had done a great job of building a self-managing business that can operate without him, and then ultimately sell, and not a fire sale, right? And obviously that's an extreme example, but that happens. We know that happens often, unfortunately, as far as passing away too young. But then on the other side of it is, if you want to have a normal exit strategy, you need to have a business that can sell for a fair amount and actually be a big part of your retirement. And too many chiropractic practices are never really a substantial part of one's retirement. It's definitely an issue.
Yeah, and, you know, to your point, 80% of businesses, privately held businesses, 80% of them will never sell.
Yep.
You use the analogy of dying on the table. There's a lot of reasons that happens, most of which are preventable. I mean, an early demise of somebody that's unpredictable can, you know, if they don't have stuff already in place, obviously,
Mhm.
it's a little too late. What I find is people, once they get to a certain income level, tend to have financial managers around them, wealth managers, attorneys. They start to get some good advice around estate planning. The thing that happens is they forget about doing it in their business.
Mhm.
And the family side is okay financially, but the business side could be a train wreck.
Yeah.
And so just it's not that hard getting
Mhm.
people to do some things. We found that there's really, you could boil it down to 8 things that drive business value. And
Mhm.
if and my goal is to get business owners to focus on those 8 things. And
Mhm.
when they do that, we can put some other fences in place to de-risk the business and help
Mhm.
them protect themselves from exactly something like that.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And one of the things that I'm always, chiropractors always talk about systems, and we kind of harp on it a lot. And there's a term that we use in our profession when someone is trying to sell their practice, and it's turnkey, right? And I'm sure everybody's heard that,
Yeah.
where it's like, oh, I got a turnkey practice, and a lot of times those practices aren't really turnkey, but theoretically, that's where you want to get it. And a little bit of backstory on how I came across playbooks and Pinnacle. I was actually like on a webinar, and one of the person there had the book in the background, and then I asked about it, and then they mentioned it, and I was like, oh, I got to buy that, and I read it, and that book is Pinnacle. Can you give our audience a little bit of a 30,000 foot overview on that book?
Sure, sure. So, Pinnacle, we have 150 Pinnacle business guides around the country. One of the things that makes Pinnacle unique is it's invitation only. These are all of us are people that have owned businesses, run businesses. Many have exited businesses and exited them well. Many have exited them poorly and learned some valuable lessons.
Hmm.
So we all have some interesting experiences, but Pinnacle is really an organization that I would say is a little bit bespoke because we are taking the best of what's out there and putting it into a framework. I like to say the right tool for the right problem at the right time for that particular business.
Hmm.
All business owners like to think they're a little bit different,
Yeah.
and in some ways they are. But at the end of the day, we all do the same thing. We get work, we do work, and we get paid. And
Hmm.
so if we can think of business that way, organize around that, things happen to go much, much better. And we get there. So Pinnacle brings to bear over 100 different tools. And again, it is a framework. We work on strategy and people. People first, we believe in
Hmm.
purpose, that you got to have that culture. And all these things, by the way, all tie into driving business value, right?
Yeah.
A great culture results in highly engaged employees, which results in highly satisfied customers, which results in a nicely performing organization.
Mhm.
We focus on playbooks, which is what we're talking about today. That is a very significant piece of what truly makes a business turnkey, to use that
Mhm.
phrase. And then we focus on measuring performance. You know, what are the vital few KPIs that you need to have that drive your business? And of course, we believe that results not only in better profits, but a better multiple if you decide to sell in the marketplace.
No, it makes sense. And then if we could spend a little bit of time on playbooks, what exactly is a playbook? What's different between a playbook and maybe an SOP, a standard operating procedure, or quote unquote system? Same thing, different name, or what are some of the nuances around what a playbook is?
Yeah, it can be the same
Mm.
thing with a different name. That's part of the problem. If I pulled you aside and I said, "Hey, describe what an SOP is to you," and I
Mhm.
grabbed another business owner and said, "What's an SOP to you?" You might show me your 45 volumes of 3-ring binders down to very finite detail of
Yep.
every single thing that you do and every possible task that can be done. The other person's going to give me a checklist and
Yeah.
say, "We just make sure we do these things for this function."
Mhm.
We don't really prescribe a specific how, but we know the what's and we know the order of the what's. And if we get that done, we know we're doing well. So
Mhm.
the biggest thing about a playbook is it's the thing that makes you consistent. It makes it
Mhm.
repeatable. It makes it scalable. It does everything good for a business, regardless of how you do it. I would say the one cautionary note that I have, I lean more towards, just from a lot of experience, I lean more towards the checklist version than I do 3 or 4 levels of detailed SOPs.
Yep.
And for all of our Myers-Briggs and DISC people and, um, performance index people out there, their personality index, there's, those high Cs, those high, compliance people kinda shudder at that, because they wanna dot every I and cross every T, but the most important thing is that you're doing the right thing at the right time in order,
Yeah.
and that it's repeatable, and that itself is something that buyers look for. Think of
Mhm.
McDonald's and Hamburger University,
Yeah.
highly scalable. There's a process. They repeat that process every time they open up a McDonald's. Whether you like McDonald's or not, I'm not
Yeah.
advocating McDonald's. You could use Chick-fil-A, you could use whatever your favorite one is, but any franchise organization has a standard playbook and they're able to replicate that in any geographical area.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think what happens to, and I'll speak to chiropractors, but I guess business owners in general, is they hear standard operating procedures or manuals or systems, and they do think, oh my God, like I don't want to write a 500-page book on our standard operating procedures, right? Like it's just so daunting. They never kind of cross that chasm. And I think what's great about the playbook is it really takes it down to a digestible way of actually having this for your business. And I'll give an example. It's like you could have a patient experience playbook, and it doesn't have to be this 20-page document out writing out a novel on what your patient experience is. It could be, here's when patient calls the office, this is our how we answer the phone. When patient, then we send them the online forms and like just kind of boom, 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 going down that list. And then, okay, and you would have maybe different phases of that patient experience, like, okay, when they're scheduling their appointment versus, okay, their first visit, what's the playbook on that first visit? And again, it doesn't have to be this long thing, but you can say, okay, stand up and greet the patient by their first name and get their insurance card and driver's license, just really nice, concise thing that a person could follow. And that's what I took from reading about the playbook and then
Mhm.
obviously getting to know it a little bit. Is that accurate when I said kind of like on a if you were to apply this to say a patient
Yeah.
experience?
Right on the money. There's
Yeah.
the 2 most important playbooks, I think, are exactly that, client or
Mhm.
customer experience and employee experience. So what's
Gotcha.
that employee experience? From the time they apply for a job, they go through an interview process, they're
Mhm.
accepted, an offer's made, they say yes. What happens? What does it look like on my first day of work? Is it, "Here's your desk, have a nice day, figure this out?" Or do you have a really nice, robust onboarding process that makes it easy for them to get integrated into the culture, introduced to people, feel like they're part of the team, and be a highly engaged participant in the organization?
Yeah. I love that. And I think I think the other thing that I've noticed in our profession is people get concerned about cookie cutter systems, right? It's like,
Mhm.
and there's been some coaching programs out there historically where it's like, okay, you sign up for their program and you get this massive, like 8 binder volume set of all of their systems that they're saying you should just do this, right? And it's a little bit too cookie cutter. Do you see that happening often in companies? And it's just really almost there. They're kind of going through the motions, but they're not really applying any of it. But then they're saying, "Oh, I've got these binders of systems," but they're
Yeah.
like 400 other dry cleaning offices are using the same one, right?
Yeah, we call that bookshelf jewelry.
Yeah,
So it just kind of sits there.
yeah,
I think there's 2 aspects of that. There is that overzealous person that creates the, like you said, it's this 500-page document, and you're really creating failure for yourself. You become your own worst enemy because, 1, nobody can find anything in that document. It's usually not
yeah.
well indexed, not well organized typically. I mean, there's somebody out there always that can say, "Wait, wait, wait, look at mine." But that is the exception, right? That's not the
Mhm.
rule. And in addition to that, Um, People just don't look at it.
Yep.
It's like, I don't have time for that. So Kevin, tell me what I'm supposed to do.
Hmm.
And you and I work together and you tell me what to do. That may not be right.
Yep.
But it's the way you learned it. And you learned it from somebody else who learned it from somebody else. And so that's the system that gets put in place and what gets perpetuated
Hmm.
by just proximity to
Hmm.
somebody else in the office that you ask the question to. Nobody's looking at a big SOP binder or set of binders.
Hmm.
The other aspect of it when it comes to the program or the toolbox, I'll say,
Hmm.
is that there are some really good systems that are out there, and every one of them has some really good traits. Every one of them has some flaws as well. Um, the downside comes when you have a limited set of tools and you're trying to force yourself through a tool because you have a tool
Yeah.
or because you have something that somebody showed you to do, but it doesn't quite fit and it doesn't quite work. So you're trying to push the proverbial, square peg through a round hole.
Hmm.
Uh, and it doesn't work without a lot of damage to the square peg, or to the hole in the board. So being able to customize
Hmm.
every single client's needs, and meet them where they are, I think is the most powerful thing anybody can do.
Yeah, I think that's great. Let's take a break from today's episode and announce our first sponsor. This is going to be Propel Marketing and Design. I've known Darcy Sullivan for years. We've worked hand in hand on my websites. I don't trust anybody else to do this search engine optimization. She does a great job. There's so much to it. A lot of the lingo and the words are beyond my comprehension, but it's just amazing work that she does. And if you're really going to get results with Google, you have to make sure your website is SEO optimized. And I really don't want you doing it yourself as a chiropractor. So you just have to have this type of stuff done. And if you're looking to get more organic online traffic that pulls in new patients, Propel Marketing and Design is currently offering chiropractors who listen to this podcast a free SEO website review. The free review will help you uncover methods that will improve your website and boost your search engine visibility. Head over to propelyourcompany.com/chiropractor and schedule your free SEO website review. You won't regret it. She gets great results. Your website needs this. Your search results need this. Head on over there to propelyourcompany.com/chiropractor to get your free SEO website review. And I know one of the things that I've done, I've built out some playbooks, like say a front desk playbook, and you can tell me if I'm wrong and how we've done this, but we've used say a Google document, and then if something says reference X Y Z, it would link to maybe a little training video on there. So if
Mhm.
front desk playbook, and let's say we reference the how to answer the phone appropriately, then it could go to an audio of that, or a video of it, or even just a written out script to it, to where you're not making that playbook really dense and confusing. But if someone does need to reference something, you have it there. Is that a decent way of doing it?
It is, and I'm a big fan of video as well.
Mhm.
In addition to documents with links, like you said, could be to a video.
Yeah.
There's some great platforms out there. I happen to personally use one called VidGuide, because it integrates to anything
Mhm.
that you have with Chrome or any other web browser. And it's very situationally specific. So if you have somebody in bookkeeping that needs to send an invoice out,
Mhm.
and for as an example, with a lot of smaller companies, they might use QuickBooks. So I'm not choosing any one over the other, just using that as a common example.
Mhm.
How do I issue an invoice in QuickBooks?
Yeah.
Well, with a vid guide, you actually video that
Mhm.
particular activity. What you could do voiceover, you could do just screenshots, however you
Yeah.
want to do it. But it comes up when the person is on that page in that um, application.
Mhm.
So it's very specific to that particular action. In other words, that video never shows up anywhere else to confuse people, and they don't have
Yeah.
to worry about where to go find it. It pops up
That's
when they need it. They watch a 2-minute video and, oh, I got it. The
Mhm.
reason I like that is I could describe to you what to do,
Yeah.
and I'm going to invariably leave something out.
Mhm.
And when you watch the video, you're going to see me check a box that I didn't mention. and you go, "Oh my gosh, I forgot to check the box. I didn't even know that
Mhm.
box was there. You never said anything about that box."
Yeah.
But in the video, I see it and I see you do it.
Yeah.
So it just really accelerates everything. And then what you want to do is have your team start creating those videos anytime there's a change for the other team. So the best
Mhm.
way to learn something is to teach it to somebody else. And now they have full ownership. And again, this is owner independence, right? This is you
Mhm.
separating yourself from having to do the day-to-day stuff and your team's taking ownership
Yeah.
of
No, I
that.
love it.
So yeah.
And I think another tool that may be a very similar one is Loom,
Yep.
Loom might
Yeah.
be like that.
Yeah.
So we've used that.
Yeah, very similar. That again, I'm not pushing VidGuide. I'm just saying
No, yeah,
what
just giving
the
options.
reason I use that I like that, and I've had my clients just create nightmares based on my recommendation of
Mhm.
videotaping stuff because then it's where do I put the files? How do I index the files? How do people find them when they need them?
Mhm.
And you can create Frankenstein if you're not careful. So uh, using something like VidGuide again, there's other
Mhm.
platforms out there uh,
Mhm.
that you can Google and check out
Yeah.
that do these things. And so it's already indexed for you. You don't have to
Mhm.
worry about that, and nobody has to worry about where they go find it. Anything that you can do to make it easy on your team,
Mhm. Mhm.
I think is a win.
It is, and, another resource for people is, you can go to Scribe How, I think
Hmm.
it's .com, I don't think it's .org, I think it's .com, and it's pretty interesting, if you were doing what you just mentioned, let's say you're on your computer screen and you click through all these different things showing how to do payroll or whatever, it actually generates a PDF, and other documents, but a PDF with written and then screenshots of you like, okay, clicking that button. And so now you also have a PDF version of
Yeah,
exactly what you did on your computer screen to pair with that video. And then you could obviously have that
yeah.
stored. Let's take a short break for one of our great sponsors, TrackStat. It is a new type of software plugin for your EHR that combines patient communication, marketing, automation, and statistics with patient and employee tracking. Built by chiropractors for chiropractors, it shows your team what to focus on each day. See patient visit habits, missing information, unpaid bills, insurance collection visit average, and more. Great visibility of data so you can focus on filling your office with your best patients. When you can see what your staff and patients are doing or not doing and take action accordingly, your profits naturally grow. Take TrackStat for a test drive in your office with our free trial. Not a techie, no problem, we can help. To get started on your free trial, visit trackstat.org and watch the demo. That is trackstat.org. Now, is there a particular platform you use to store all these things, or do you? I know there's certain things out there, or do you use Google Drive or anything? Any words of wisdom there?
Yeah, there's so many different
So
things,
many.
right?
Yeah.
And so again, without overly disrupting an organization,
Mhm.
use what works for them. So if they're
Yeah.
Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Drive, use that.
Mhm.
If
Yeah.
they're OneDrive and Microsoft and Teams, use that. You
Mhm.
know, if you're a Dropbox, use that.
Yeah.
There's so many things that are out there. Trainual
Yep.
is an organization that has a place for playbooks and all the
Mhm.
things we've just talked about. They consolidate that, have training, and have a platform. So there's again so many different ways to do it. It's finding the thing that is the path of least resistance for your
Mhm.
team,
Yeah.
and oftentimes that's the least amount of change
Mhm.
possible, so that the adaptability is high
Yeah.
or
Yeah, I think
adaptation is high.
that's such a good wisdom there, and because I think sometimes we go into things with best intentions, and we sign up for Process Street or Traniel or something, and then
Mhm.
you're paying X amount of money a month, but you just don't ever really put the time into really using it for what it's worth. It's kind of like if you were a $500,000 a year business, signing up for Salesforce may not be the wisest thing for you because you just may not have the bandwidth to actually learn how to use it for what it costs, right? I've talked
Yeah.
to organizations that have rolled out a platform like Salesforce, and it's amazing, but you better be willing to invest some time and money and coaching almost on just that thing alone, right?
Oh yeah.
It's just, sometimes you got to have what's the least resistance. And if, if you're a smaller or a moderate sized chiropractic practice, Google Drive might be good. I mean, even on our coaching side of things, we have a lot of content, a lot of coaching calls, and we put together these little lesson packs for our clients. Like, look, tell me what's your biggest problem? Is it burnout right now? Okay, I got a little pack I put together of 4 lessons or things we've done in the past that tackle that thing, and then it's a document. They get click on it, goes right to the video or the lessons within. It's all done in Google Drive, and it's kind of amazing what you can do with that. And I envision that with chiropractic practices and playbooks.
Yeah, and the nice thing about any of those platforms like that, Google Drive or Dropbox or anything like that, is they're platform independent. So if somebody's on Macs in one place and somebody's on PCs in another place, it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
And you can collaborate. There's some you can control access to documents that somebody can edit or just view, and it's a really powerful
Yeah.
place to collaborate for sure. Yeah, so I think, you know, first of all, uh, why playbooks? I mean,
Mhm.
some people out there are probably listening to this going, I hate playbooks. I've tried it before. It didn't work. Why do
Mhm.
I even care about this? I mean, number one, especially for smaller companies, is they need to understand that the playbooks are going to fuel growth for them.
Mhm.
And it's like, well, Craig, how does a playbook fuel growth? Well, number one, you have consistency, and we know
Mhm.
things done over time consistently compound, right? So you get
Yep.
repeatability. Repeatability leads to scalability, much faster onboarding and training.
Mhm.
There's not a business owner out there that hasn't spent a ton of time and effort, sometimes a lot of money, training an employee,
Mhm.
and this turns into a key employee that you're relying on, and that employee leaves, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I gotta do this all over again." That's a very
Mhm.
painful experience. It's not just expensive dollar-wise,
Yep.
but just the time and the investment and the loss of productivity in the
Mhm.
office is incredible. But if you have playbooks, it's super easy to onboard the next person because it's
Mhm.
easy for them, if the playbooks are well done, to figure out exactly what to do. So it
Yep.
speeds that process up well. And by the way, a lot of people will say, well, why train them? What happens if you
Mhm.
train them and they leave? And well, what happens if you don't train them and they stay?
Yes. It's one
Right?
of my favorite.
That's even worse, right?
It's
So
way worse. Yes.
so so we do want to train them, but this makes it
Mhm.
good. And then it's a way of replicating success. Right?
Mhm.
How do the big companies do it, right? The Fortune 500 companies and people like this. If they'll hire a large consulting house, and
Mhm.
they'll say, "Hey, we need to improve productivity in an area or whatever." One of the things that most consulting houses will do is they'll come in and say, "Well, who are your best people?"
Mhm.
And you'll say, "Oh, Kevin's amazing." Okay, well, let's go look at Kevin, and we're going to watch what Kevin does, and we're going to sit with Kevin. We're going to interview Kevin. We're going to see what his process is. And
Mhm.
basically, I'm oversimplifying it. So if you're out there and you're a consultant, just don't take this. My name is Craig, and I'm your friend. But what they're going to do is they're going to say, "Here's what Kevin does. Go have everybody else do what Kevin does."
Mhm.
But they'll have documented it, and they'll have written up a profile, and this is what it looks like to be Kevin. And you're not trying to create clones,
Mhm.
right? You're trying to create repeatable excellence and staff your team with A players.
Mhm.
I like to say that A players are free because one A player is going to outperform three B players every
Mhm.
single time, and their increase in productivity is going to more than make up for the salary that you're paying them. So
Yep.
sometimes you do pay more,
Mhm.
but you need fewer of those people when you're hiring the very best people that are out there or training up the best people. The second thing it does is this has a direct tie to your business value,
Yes.
right? So first it fuels growth and success, but the second thing it does, it helps you maximize your business value. So back
Mhm.
to our initial discussion, how much is a business worth? And it can be worth, especially a smaller company,
Mhm.
it's going to be some multiple of Probably at a smaller company that talk about sellers' discretionary earnings
Mhm.
as opposed to EBITDA. They're going to be maybe a small multiple on revenue, but some number. Somebody's usually buying that business to expand their reach in a demographic market, right? Or they're hiring your staff, right? They want
Yeah.
access to your staff and to your customers. So that would be a reason to do that. But it's transferable knowledge.
Mhm.
It's owner independence. Not that the owner is independent
Mhm.
financially, which is what we want, but the business is independent of the owner.
Yeah.
In other words, if you're out for 3 months, the business continues to run without interruption. Um, it reduces overdependency on that key employee, right? The
Yes.
one person who has a secret sauce in their head and they've
Mhm.
never shared it with anybody and nobody knows what they do, nobody knows how they do it, and something happens to that person or that
Mhm.
person leaves, um, everybody's left scratching their head trying to figure out how do we get there? So that's important. And then
Mhm.
efficiency, right? It's operational efficiency. Again,
Mhm.
it's repeatable, it's scalable. And one thing about that is, which ties to the next point, which is improving or employee engagement, is a lot of people think that, and here's this is entrepreneurs, right? So most
Mhm.
of us entrepreneurs live by the phrase, "You are not the boss of me," right?
Mhm.
So we don't want to work for somebody else. We want to have our own business. And there's a certain freedom in that. And we feel like this could sound a lot like rules and constraints. And this, I don't like this feeling. It's kind of like making me feel claustrophobic. But the reality is, in a way, it's a lot like AI if AI is used properly. What it does is it frees people up to focus more on revenue generating activities
Mhm.
than doing stupid administrative things,
Yeah.
right? And trying to figure stuff out because there is no clear process and I'm
Mhm.
wasting so much time. And if only I had known that all I had to do was XYZ, I could have been done with this an hour and a half ago.
Mhm.
And then that hour and a half gets freed up to focus on those revenue generating activities, which could include client experience, right? I
Yeah.
could spend instead of having my head down, typing away at my computer when somebody walks into the reception area.
Mhm.
I've got time to stand up, greet them by name with a smile, ask them if they want a glass of water or a cup of coffee, make them feel really welcome, make them feel really special. Like, I see you, I acknowledge you. You're not an interruption to my day as I'm typing away at my computer and barely noticing you out of the corner of my eye. So it does really have a positive effect on the business by
Mhm.
freeing people up instead of constraining people. So just throwing that out there for all the entrepreneurs out there that feel like rules are a bad thing. It's
Mhm.
not about that.
Yep.
When employees have clarity and confidence, it frees them up and empowers them in their decision making
Mhm.
in crazy ways. It's really amazing to see what people can do when they step up into a more productive space because they're not bogged down with all this other stuff. The second thing is it empowers them, which we just said, and it's an opportunity for professional development. If I have
Mhm.
playbooks throughout my organization, I can begin to rotate those people that I see as emerging leaders,
Mhm.
somebody that's going to rise up. I can start to move them from place to place and they can get a broader experience. In your case, they might get a broader experience of the practice. What does it look like, not just to do this one job in a practice, but what does it look like overall to run a practice? And maybe you're developing an office manager all of a sudden
Mhm.
who could take a huge burden off of you to free you up to do the things that you want to do and that you do best. And then lastly, it reduces turnover.
Mhm.
One of the biggest things is your onboarding success. What does that experience look like?
Mhm.
I It's one of the things that companies do very poorly,
Yeah.
especially small companies, because everybody's busy and
Mhm.
nobody has time. So we throw you into the mix. You're in the deep end of the pool. We hope you survive. We don't really spend a lot of time with you. Maybe we do lunch with you the first day. Maybe we walk you around the office, introduce you to everybody. But we don't really get to know you.
Mhm.
We don't spend a lot of time with you because, hey, you know what? The building's on fire. It's crazy. We need your help. Just jump in and do this. We'll talk next week, and next week never comes, right?
Mhm.
So that's a big one. The culture alignment.
Mhm.
Uh, there's a old phrase from Peter Drucker: "Culture eats strategy for lunch." And it really does, right? So we want to be
Mhm.
intentional about the culture that we have in our office, which our clients feel, right?
Mhm.
Part of that client experience. They understand what does it look like when I walk into your reception area?
Yeah.
Is everything cluttered? Is it messy? Are the floors dirty? Are the restrooms dirty? Is 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 it dead quiet? There's no music playing. Um, just the smells, the paint colors, like there's this whole experience that
Yeah.
that you're in. And that's part of culture. How people
Mhm.
treat each other is part of culture. How we show up, do we dress professionally? How do we work? How do we support each
Mhm.
other? Do we collaborate? Are we a bunch of independent people? So it really helps cultural alignment. And I think one of the biggest things is it kind of weaves through this whole thing is it really reduces frustration.
Yeah.
And if I'm not frustrated and I enjoy coming to work and it's a great place to be,
Mhm.
then I'm highly engaged. And we know from Gallup and decades of research that
Mhm.
highly engaged employees, those businesses perform in the top quartile of all
Yeah.
businesses. And there's huge differences in profitability and revenue and growth and satisfaction and client satisfaction. Like all the dials go the right direction when you have an engaged team.
Let's take a short break from today's episode to tell you about the best decision I've made in my clinic in the last 10 years. And that has been adding shockwave therapy to our clinic. The outcomes have been really impressive. Certain conditions we were struggling with in the past, we're now seeing results with the shockwave therapy for that. And second of all, the ROI has been really good. When you make a big investment in something, you want to see a return. And we're seeing that return in clinical outcomes and in our investment. And that's been really nice to see. I chose Keenest Medical for 4 reasons. One is the technology is top notch. You have to have great technology. There's a lot out there that isn't quite up to snuff. The second thing is they have a really good clinical training. They have an exclusive partnership with Academy of Shockwave Excellence so that you can become clinically proficient in shockwave. You do need to get skilled at it. I think that's a big differentiator between practices that are getting great results and seeing the ROI is they have a great clinical aspect to that as well. So you want to get trained appropriately. Third is they have in-house service team for all of your technical support, which is key when you're investing in a machine like this. And then lastly, they have a very in-depth marketing and business support for you so that you can launch this into your practice effectively, that you can get that ROI on it, that you can get the clinical outcomes. And they also have really good financing options if you need that. So go to kinasmedical.com, KINAS medical.com, mention MCM podcast and receive a free shockwave in practice book with a purchase of a unit. So that's kinasmedical.com, KINAS medical.com, and mention MCM podcast. There's a few things I want to touch on there, and I'll start right what you just talked about hiring. It's fascinating because a lot of people will complain. It's like, oh, I keep on hiring the wrong people, and that could be, if you don't have a playbook for hiring, that could be a legitimate thing. Maybe your talent acquisition is off. I kind of look at it as 4 phases of really having an A player, and obviously talent acquisition is one. I think hiring a really good hiring process is two, and onboarding is three, and then a continual training is four. But a lot of times people might have hired the right person. It wasn't a hiring problem. They just had a severe onboarding issue and
Mhm.
everything like you just said. And so you had no strategy to onboard this person and they came into in chaos and said, like, I don't want to work here. Some of these, especially these chiropractic clinics can be really busy. And if they just get thrown into the fire, you might burn them out quickly and say they can't imagine being there for a year, 5 years,
Yeah.
let alone another week. So people gotta really get clear on that part of it. The other thing I wanted to mention is we had a kind of a real life scenario with how important a playbook can be is our front desk slash practice manager. She went on maternity leave for her first child, and but obviously the good thing about maternity leave is you have quite a few months to prepare for it, right? It's
Mhm.
not like someone leaving, putting in their 2 weeks notice. Like we had a good 6 months, and over that 6 months, we built out a really good playbook for that front desk and all the tasks. And we were during her few months of not being with us. Um, we had 2 to 3 interns with us during that period of time, and they kind of covered doing the front desk, and they had this playbook on all the things to do, and because it was really important to us, especially the first couple months of her maternity leave, was not to reach out to her about work related stuff, right? We really wanted to, protect her maternity leave there in that
Yeah.
regard, and it really worked out. And so you might have situations like that where it's important, and you may not always have, because I'll be honest, we didn't have an updated playbook for the front desk until that, but we were blessed with the 6 months of uh, or maybe even 7 months of before she was on maternity leave. So that was pretty cool to see how that did work.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is a great point. And, you know, and even now with paternity leave too, right? So,
Mhm.
uh, it's not always the person you expect to be gone, it's other people that are gone. And now,
Yep.
having again, you get some notice, which is great,
Mhm.
uh, but you have to do something as you did proactively with that notice.
Yeah.
What a lot of people do is say, "Oh, good, I've got time,"
Mhm.
and they forget about it until that person walks out the door, and it's like, "Oh my gosh, what are we going to do?" Write down everything that you're doing.
Mhm.
And oftentimes they will. I mean, a conscientious employee is going to write everything. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what needs to be done, and all that kind of stuff. But sometimes it's very clear in their mind
Mhm.
what they wrote down, but somebody reading it for the first time doesn't understand it.
Yeah.
And so that person's going to get a lot of calls at home.
Mhm.
Hey, I know you're on maternity leave. I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
I just have a couple of quick questions for you. Is that
Mhm.
okay? But having that time ahead and being intentional about it
Mhm.
and documenting what they're doing, that's
And
awesome.
it can be simple too, right? Like an example, like one thing that might be on our particular front desk is we use a software called Cash Practice Systems for our merchant processing and such. And on there just needs to be, okay, here's a tutorial on that, and here's our main contact person from that company. Because most of these types of, whether it's your EHR or whatever, has a point of contact. And so
Yeah.
that's our resources. If shit hits the fan, we have someone to talk to outsource there, right?
Yeah.
And then I wanted to touch on one more thing you mentioned about, like, obviously the sellability of a practice and the value of a practice. And it's one thing that we've tried to also convey to chiropractors is our company MCM. We've developed like a playbook of marketing that we actually do for chiropractors, and I've actually asked that question to Crystal Meisenheimer. She owns a practice sales company for chiropractors, particularly, and asked her that question. Is like, look, does a practice that has consistent and historical marketing being done over time, does it increase the value? And she said, of course, yes. People want to buy something that has had marketing being done consistently for a long time. And so marketing would be a playbook that your practice needs to have. And if you
Hmm.
can have that done consistently, not only is it going to drive practice, it's going to increase the value, because it's like you are now a practice that has fully developed marketing and been going on for some time, and it's been adding value to your practice. And so that's another example of a playbook that would be need to be done consistently for a practice that would obviously drive results currently while you own it, but also again make it more sellable.
Yeah. 100%. And what is the process? What's the sales playbook? So marketing generates the interest, generates the lead that turns into a contact with the practice. How does that practice turn that into an actual visit?
Mhm.
And then how do you turn that visit into hopefully a long-term client, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's all the kind of things people are going to look at is what is
Mhm.
what's your customer demographic? Um, and I don't mean that financially or anything else, but how many clients do you have? What percentage of your revenue is tied to a smaller portion of clients versus more? Obviously, the more diverse you are, the more valuable the company is. Um, Anybody that's tied to one particular client, right? You like to say that a person who's in the uh, process of looking for a company to buy never wants to see customer concentration greater than 15%.
Got
Now, in a medical practice or a chiropractic practice or
it. Mhm.
some of these others that are B2C directly, going to a customer, you have a bunch of individual clients, right? You might have
Yeah.
100 clients. I don't know how much the average practice has, but you
Mhm.
have a lot of different ones, so you don't have to worry about that. Only when you're small and starting out,
Yeah.
don't get over reliant on
Mhm.
one or two key people, but also on suppliers, key suppliers. We learned the hard way. A lot of companies learned the hard way through COVID
Mhm.
that when the supply chain is disrupted significantly and you're over reliant on one or two key suppliers, that can have tragic consequences for your business.
Yep. Yep.
Right. So,
Abs-
and then they're looking for over reliance on one or two
mhm.
key employees. Right. So this whole over reliance thing is a big deterrent
Well, I'll
to
give you an
market.
example of over reliance on a chiropractic practice. Is some practices are over reliant on that owner doctor's relationship, like personality and some of the
Yeah.
referrals to that particular doctor. And it's not a diversified referral source of new patients. And so if you go to sell, too much of that business is going to leave and that can decrease the value. And that's something that we always know of for sure.
Absolutely. And having that culture, that client
Hmm.
experience,
Yeah.
having a client experience that is top shelf, independent of the doctor,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? Or doctors, right? Um, and even slowly bringing additional doctors on
Yep.
so
Hmm.
that there's less and less, and you're able to hand off patients over time.
Yeah. Yeah, and we could do a whole part 2 on that. As a lot of chiropractors, I try to explain why it's so important to have really good profit margins and be able to hire other team members is because ultimately that's how you're going to have something that is sellable. But Craig, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate the wisdom on playbooks. I hope this kind of kickstarts some folks and realize they need to build an actual business and they can still be a great doctor. There's always a misconception it's you can't be a great doctor and a great business person. That is false. And there are certain things you can do that are going to help you in that. But how can they find out more about what you do and your coaching and different things that you offer?
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. I would say the easiest thing to do is to visit my website, which is Summit Achievers, plural, summitachievers.com, or they can look for me on LinkedIn, and it's just
Mm.
Craig Huston, Huston.
Perfect. And I'll put that in the show notes. And I really appreciate your time today.
All right, thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. And if you want to make the shift from busy, broke, and broken to time free and cash confident, or you just want to continue with the exponential growth, check us out at modernchiropracticmarketing.com. Look at the MCM Mastery tab, watch the short video on there, and check out what we are doing now for evidence-informed chiropractors. We are equal parts coaching and marketing done for you. Yes, you shoot some videos, we help you with campaign strategies and ideas and really become a thought leader in your community. You shoot those videos, you send them to us, we produce, edit, and brand them to you. Then we distribute them through all of your channels. We also take them and we turn it into one good blog per month. And every other month, we have Darcy Sullivan producing a robust blog with a topic that you pick from her database to help with your SEO. So we essentially become your content marketing agency to make sure your practice is always having ethical, elegant content marketing to help grow your practice. On the coaching side, we also help you with everything from marketing ideas to business, communications, finances, anything practice growth, and really try to help prevent you from being stuck on that island. And we hold you accountable. We have a great group of doctors that are just doing amazing things. And we look forward to help you out to take that next step in your practice. So again, check us out at modernchiropracticmarketing.com and learn more.